Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the latest dev feedback that just dropped for the month of July. We will also be doing our own top 10 most upvoted suggestions so we can show you a little bit more of the context and hopefully some additional details here, at least for any of the questions that may not have been selected out of the top 10 that have been included within the dev feedback for July. We'll do that in a separate video, so stay tuned for that. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you help us out and throw us out, because it does help out a lot. Thank you, dude. I'll find you. Okay, let's get into number one. Legendary/epic city skins. Please do more old legendary epic city skin throwback event. If you go forward with the stacking of city skins, can you also introduce some kind of event to buy purple city skins? Oh boy, let's hope that they stop doing the stacking of city skins. From the past, many of us stopped buying purple city skins since we got the one we wanted already. As an example, if I already had plus 5% attack for mages, nobody would buy the plus 5% defense mage since we would never use it. Okay. Thanks for the suggestion. We will consider bringing back this event with the relevant plan currently under development. Please stay tuned for more details in the August developers Q&A. Okay, so it'll be next one. So it sounds like, okay, maybe they are considering bringing back the city skin throwback event. Now, I'm curious for those of you who do partake in this event, regardless of the stacking of city skins prior to that feature becoming enabled within the game, did you value the city skin throwback event? And do you value it more now because you can stack city skins, which, as most people know, I'm basically against. I just don't think that it's good for the game overall, but I still would like to know at least what you think on that one. Rally notification. This blue rally notification is super annoying. Please add an option to remove it ASAP. Thank you for your feedback. We have temporarily disabled it for optimization and adjustments. A new version with an on-off setting will be launched later. The exact release time is still being confirmed, so please stay tuned. And again, I think this is just more quality of life. Just being able to have some kind of a toggle option on what you want to enable and disable in the game, especially if, for example, you are already in the game. And again, maybe you want to change it to a different color. Maybe you just don't want it to show because it'll show in other areas on your UI when you're already playing. I think just having this option to where you can remove it or keep it in is nice. I'm curious if people would almost like for it to be a different color as well, if they could opt for that, or maybe even change the position of it on your UI. Okay, number 3. Events in Home Kingdom. Add more stuff to do outside of KvK. It's too boring. Okay. Events in Home Kingdom are already in the planning stage and will include both alliance and individual PvP events. Now, this is cool. Personally, I think they could even do KvK events within the Home Kingdom that are not sorry, I'm already forgetting now. Not EOTC, but Brink of War, excuse me. Not like BOW-ish events. And some examples like we've talked about before, where you're taking like the Osiris League, the Sunset, or not Osiris, but like the Sunset Canyon thing in Rock, and I'm already forgetting now what the name of it in COD, but basically doing something like that, but instead maybe it's like 5v5. It's like a team event where you can participate and go up against other teams of 5, teams of 10, 15, 20. I guess kind of like what they do with, Battle Abyss, right? But maybe it's something that you can, we've talked about this with Battle Abyss as well, where, maybe you kind of work in different objectives. You can do stuff like world firsts, right? Maybe, for example, what they do is they give you like a world first board that you can do for PvE. So it can be like your kingdom, how quickly can you do this task? How quickly can you do this objective? How high of a score can you gain in this? And then maybe you can have like an internal ranking where it's against alliances or maybe teams of players within your kingdom, but then you could also stack those up globally against other kingdom rankings, against other kingdom best times. Things like that. I'm just kind of thinking outside the box. Again, don't want to give away too many secrets here, but again, just our ideas. But these are just some that I think if you take inspiration from other games and you think about what are some things you could incorporate here into COD, I think those are some. Okay, the reliquary system. Remove this change. You're buffing whales, krakens, nothing else. They are just too lazy to change city themes when fighting to now introduce a way for them to click a button and have better attributes. I think this is just to the stacking of the skins, I believe. Thank you for we need more data to make decisions, so we are not considering making changes for now. We will keep monitoring how the system performs online. I mean, again, I stand pretty firm in this, in that, listen, I think it's okay to disagree with things that are being done, or the way that things are happening within the game, as long as it's done from a stance and a position of hopefully, neutrality at minimum. And for me, again, I don't agree with this because you're essentially allowing for kind of like the best of the best things to be acquired, which we already know in an easier, faster way, right? By people that spend. That's just a given. And now you're allowing for them to stack those things. It's almost like if you allowed for people to stack like 2 or 3 exemplar artifacts, right? You kind of have to look at it like that. Or being able to stack, instead of maybe having 2 commanders, now all of a sudden you can have 3 heroes per march, right? And that just makes it a lot easier for, again, the people who do spend to already have like some of the best stats and best heroes and already maxed out, etc. And now all of a sudden they could have 3 instead of 2, right? Just adding that much more of an oomph to their punching power. So this to me is no different. Then we get to pet auctions. In the latest Q&A, we would be able to put up pets for auctions, but we'll only receive gems if someone buys our pets. Please change this so we would receive exchange coins instead. This basically locks our way for people to earn pet coins, mostly low spend players, and only slowly making the pet gap on higher spend players bigger, since they have money to buy exchange coins and auction for pets, while low spend or free to play are basically locked out, since there is no way to compete. If you make the change such that you get exchange coins if someone buys your pet, the person that sold their pet can use that to fund to buy a different pet they need. Okay. But these people are let me see. The current design is intended to make it easier for players to develop heroes and artifacts through obtaining gems, ensuring everyone can enjoy a good growth experience. Therefore, we have no plans to adjust this feature for now. We will continue to monitor data and feedback. I mean, this kind of makes sense to me, and I have to imagine all the downvotes on this because I don't think any of the other things, because you can react to these individually. I think the fact that this one has this many downvotes, when you don't usually see a lot of people, like, to be honest, going through the dev feedback stuff and reacting, I think this clearly at least is showing an indicator that it's like, hey, maybe this actually is a good suggestion. I'm curious for what some of you think out there. Let me know in the comments below. But I mean, to me, this makes sense at face value. And most people know I don't typically comment too much on pets because I just don't really mess around with them. But if you're talking about being able to use it, it's almost like, you're making money from your company and you're reinvesting the money into your company instead of just kind of netting it, if you will. This kind of seems like a similar approach to that. Okay, cavalry's related issues. Cavs should not be able to dash through infantry. Cavs are too OP at present. Please nerf them. Thank you for at present. We consider infantry, cavalry, and other units to be relatively balanced. We will continue to monitor battlefield data and performance. And if cavalry is OP, we will consider making adjustments. Okay, I mean, I think this is okay of a response. I guess the idea of dashing through infantry, I guess it depends on what your suggestion is. Are you suggesting that you should not be able to go through other units, and instead you have to be able to go around units? So like every unit is kind of like a hard block. So you can't go through any unit regardless of what the type is, right? Unless maybe it's flying, then obviously you can go over. And if that's the case, okay, that's something kind of in its entirety. The challenge here is that their answer, which I'm shocked this got upvotes on this. I mean, well, technically it's got 8 poopies. But what I will say is the interesting part about this is like the answer doesn't really even acknowledge what feels like the only point that was actually brought up in the suggestion, which is Cav should not be able to dash through infantry. But the response does not actually speak to anything about what the suggestion was that the dev team chose to respond to. I mean, how about them apples? Talk about a big ball of not making any sense at all. That's wild. You pick a suggestion, but you don't even answer or respond to the suggestion itself. Wild stuff, man. I mean, damn. It's just, all right. Now, respectfully, if I look at this objectively, this looks like a giant FU to this suggestion, whoever wrote this, and then pick it. They're like, oh, yeah, we're just like, we don't care. You ask your question, we're not going to respond to it. We're just going to respond to something else. Like, that's how it looks, right? Now, again, maybe I'm missing something. If I am, let me know. Okay, event schedule. The next time you plan things such as Runix, please don't make it happen while there is a ceasefire due to season start. Okay, yeah, this was something that I remember people were talking about when the statues were happening, especially at Supreme. We apologize for the issue. It was a bug that has now been fixed. We will take measures to prevent similar occurrences in the future. Yeah, and this is just like an easy, okay, we just need to fix the coding on this. They did that, right? It should be all good going forward. But yeah, it absolutely sucked. Okay, class balance and War of the Last Snows. Currently, the Warlord's skill remains active for the full duration, while the Druid's skill only lasts until returning to the city. I understand that this limitation might make sense when granting the buff to someone else. However, the Druid should personally retain the increased attack and other benefits from the Rite of Impetus skill for its entire duration. Base is 15 minutes. Currently, legions lose their buffs when they return to the city. Right now, 97% of players choose Warlord because other classes offer noticeably less, except Herbalist, for farming. Okay. And I guess if they're saying that they just want it to last the full duration, not where it's not proccing, but where basically you activate and then that activation is nullified based on an action that's being done, and it's not just like a passive amount of time or duration that's elapsing over a period. That, I guess, does make a little bit more sense to me. I'd have to look at the skills because I have skimmed over some of the class stuff or WOTL or WOTLS, but I haven't like read everything super in detail. But again, I'm curious because nobody reacted to this. So I'm curious if that's essentially just the case. It's like, look, let's just have it last the elapsed time so it's passively applied regardless of when the units are coming back into the city or going back out. If that's the case, I guess that kind of makes sense to me, unless there's like something like some kind of massive thing wrong with doing it that way. Because that's kind of how I'm understanding based on how they have written this. So you guys have to let me know on that one. Alliance chests. Rework alliance chests. As example, remove the alliance points from the pay chest. It feels really bad to gain alliance points from pay chests and put them into the free-to-play chests from Darkling Forts and give us a small chance to gain Relocator from pay chest. Okay. Alliance points from pay chests. Okay. I mean, to be fair, and again, part of me is like, but don't you gain alliance points on your chest even when you're like from the Darklings, even after? Are they saying because it's already maxed? See, now I need to go in game real quick and just look. So if I click on alliance, I click on gifts, my blessings. Okay, now my thing's at 50. Okay. No. Okay, so no. So I am gaming blessing. Okay, maybe they're not referring to blessing though. Like when it's already at 50 and you're just referring to alliance chest. So maybe I'm the one reading this one wrong. So rework alliance chests. As example, remove the alliance points from the pay chest. It feels, oh, I see, okay. So basically for any of the bundle chests, it feels really bad to gain alliance points from a pay chest and put them in the free-to-play chest from Darkling Forts and give us a small chance. Yeah, okay. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm okay with them having alliance points in both. I guess, man, I'm gonna be honest. It's been a while because the kingdom I have my main is in 65. They're not super active, obviously. It's basically deadish. So there really hasn't been alliance chests that I have had the opportunity to select in a very long time. But I'll just say this: my assumption would be, okay, why wouldn't you already have wouldn't there be alliance points in both in any of the chests that you click on and not just one? So if that's the case, that's pretty wild to me. Because I just wouldn't have thought that. if I'm coming into the game, I would imagine any chest that's going in, I can earn alliance points off of it. Now, maybe the value of points or the number of points may vary depending on the type of chest. But if that's what they're saying, yeah. I mean, again, I guess this to me kind of makes sense for based on what I'm reading and how I understand the chest being used for alliance points. Unless they want you, unless the dev or COD team wants you to like limit the amount of alliance points, so you're not grinding and reaching max level on the alliance points for the chests that as fast. Yeah, I'm sure someone will explain this better to me too as well. In case maybe I'm a little off here, but I love how there's 9 laughing emojis on that one. MTG event. Add more than gems in rock to the game. I actually would be okay with this, to be honest. Thank you for your suggestion. We are not planning to add an identical MTG event for now, but we will consider introducing similar events that offer high value rewards in exchange for gems. I mean, to be fair, I don't really see what's wrong with adding an MTG event to COD. Like, I don't see what's wrong with that at all. I can tell you, for someone who played COD Rock for 3 years, I loved the MTG event, especially because I didn't spend any money on the game for over 2 years until I only had spent $20, and that was it. And I think that was just to do like growth fund or something. And so at that point, the more than gems event was butter, man. Like that was where it was at for me as a free to play at that time. So yeah, I think this actually is it could be a really good event for free to play as well. I don't know what maybe I'm missing. I just don't see a downside, I guess, is where I'm going with that. So yeah, that's kind of rough. Classification and matchmaking. Ooh, this should be good. Replacing the classification matchmaking system with a transparent points-based method for forming teams, each kingdom would be assigned a visible point score based on factors like power, T5 count, merits, and kings would build teams within a set point budget. This would reduce mega stack teams and create fair KvK matchups. Now, I want to point this out. This is interesting that this person, whoever suggested this, said this, because this is exactly what I said. This was one of the suggestions I had for how to, if you wanted to do something different, what's one way you could do it differently? Well, it's where you make it to where you have a hard point system or a hard value, like a hard ceiling cap, whatever that ceiling cap is, right? And I used the example of power. So I said something like, okay, well, you have to choose up to 4. You can have four kingdoms in your team, but the team can't exceed like 60 billion power, right? Or 70 billion, like something like that. That was the example I believe I had used. So this is interesting that they're saying it like this, kind of doing it a different way, because in this way you could actually potentially use the migration point system, unless you come up with like a KvK registration point system, which I think that could be interesting. So like if a kingdom during the registration phase has to select what alliances they want to bring into the KvK, and then once that registration period finishes, that kingdom is allocated or assigned a KvK point score or a registered point score, and then that point score is the new system, the new metric or value system they use to then limit or to set a cap on the other kingdoms they would team up with. That could be interesting. My God, I think I sucked air. Oh, I'm at the bottom. Okay. Thank you for your suggestion. We are working on a KvK skipped kingdom adjustment plan to minimize the likelihood of such situations. This plan will be implemented as soon. KvK skipped kingdom adjustment. I mean, again, this is how you fix that. You just start merging the dead kingdoms, because sure, you might have some kingdoms that might skip that probably don't need to skip, but there's way more kingdoms that are essentially eligible to skip or have already met their skipping cap that are just dead kingdoms you should be merging. Merging is a form of solving this as well. It is one way to help solve it. Not that it would be the sole way, but it is one way that can help. Here are some of the measures we have tentatively planned. Interesting. With further details to be provided in upcoming updates, we will specify in the rules the key weighted factors in the classification process. I mean, again, that would be great. I think the transparency I can effortlessly agree with based on that suggestion. Add a kingdom power leaderboard to display each kingdom's performance in the previous season, and incorporate a 6-dimensional chart in the matchmaking interface to present each kingdom's power. Okay, again, these could be good steps in the right direction. I would be very curious to see what they do here. I am not necessarily mad at this. I again would love to have some more details. I want to see exactly how it looks. The other way to do it as well is you just have the dev team form matchups, form the teams themselves, right? That's one way to do it, where it's you just go basically based on data and historical, you go off current and historical data, right? And that way it's objective. And you don't potentially have the situation, because this is the problem that you can still always run into is, oh, I don't like you. Oh, you're cool. I'll team with you, but I'm not going to go team with you. And then you can just end up having mismatches that way. And then people can still claim that matchmaking sucks. It's almost like you're always going to kind of have this way out unless you have some kind of like above standard, above board, objective way of forming teams within a team-based KvK system. If that is what's being ran for that season, that's probably one of the few ways that you're really going to eliminate that. Otherwise, you are always going to run the risk of having issues like that. Now, do I think something like a team power or a team point cap can help? Absolutely, I think something like that can help. But again, I don't think it's as perfect as it could be. You could still find some limitations there compared to if the dev team just did the matchmaking themselves. That's what I personally think. As long as it can be done objectively, and it can be done in a way that's transparent to everyone, so everyone knows like what factors are going into it, I think that to me is the absolute best way. But I think that this is a very close second way to doing it, right? Depending on how it's done. Next, don't put 30 bill alliance in the same pool as 8 bill alliances. While these alliances are in the same pool, they will not be matched against each other. Matchmaking will aim to pair kingdoms with comparable strength. I mean, the challenge is that you need to basically fix, I mean, and this is like a whole, I could go on for this one for days. But the problem here is that, and someone else brought this up in one of my YouTube comments, where talking about it's like A seeds should just be paired with A seeds. B should just be paired with Bs. C should be with Cs, and D should be with Ds. To a degree, I do somewhat agree here, in that when you have A, B seeded kingdoms that can team up together, the power gap is so wide already between A and B. Like we saw it. It's like between 30 billion and I think 12, 13 billion, something like that. And then you take C and D, and it's basically between like 1 billion and like 13, 14 billion. So you're talking about like, let's just say on average, a 14 to 16 billion power gap between when you combine two seeds together. The challenge is that we need to try and look at and work towards building healthier, more sustainable kingdoms, and also merging the dead kingdoms. You need more kingdoms that are closer in power to one another in order to get more fair and balanced matchups. That's it. And there are a number of ways to do this. It just so happens that some of those ways are not being currently implemented when they could be and should have been a while ago. Okay, let's see. A permanent PvP game mode. Oh, interesting. The Battle Abyss will not be open around... Oh, wait. Please introduce a permanent PvP game mode as an example of Battle Abyss like game mode, which we can play 24/7. The Battle Abyss will not open around the clock for now, as some time slots see too few participating alliances, resulting in long wait times. At present, it is still intended to be available during peak periods. However, we are planning other PvP activities. Yeah. Again, I think that's okay for now. I think you have to make Battle Abyss enticing and exciting for people to watch. Like, I can tell you right now, if they did something with Battle Abyss, I'll be very frank. At the moment, I would rather watch Battle Abyss matches over Roots of War matches. Why? Because it's a smaller map, they're more fast-paced, and the matches aren't as long. Now, I would love for them to do other things with Battle Abyss, right? And if they did things like VOD or being able to watch matches, like maybe like if there's a top match that's happening, or you have like top players that are in a match, a way where you can watch the match on a delay or something like that, or even if they recorded those and allowed for those to be watched in VODs. The challenge is like with things like Battle Abyss, like they could do so much more if they just kind of approached it more like, how do we treat this like an esport, right? How do we treat this like a spectator sport? And you could have things like Battle Abyss and Roots of War be so much bigger than where they are currently, is probably the nicest way to put it. But yeah, I actually would love for them to do more PvP related things. This is kind of a similar thing in a previous. They actually did pick some good suggestions to actually answer this time for the most part. Next, better Brink of War and KvK rewards. The rewards and gifts in the game are very bad compared to Rock. An update, rewards for both KvK and Brink of War have been increased. Oh, that's great. So that'll be happening in the next update. Greatest heights. Matchmaking. Okay, interesting. Let's see here. Great Heights event should not be only with neighboring servers. It should be matched with equal kingdoms like KvK. Make getting a legendary city theme more accessible. This is interesting because the fact is you have to look at it like this. Like, let's say you have 8 kingdoms, right? So usually it's in groups of 8. So it's like kingdoms 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and it continues all the way on, right? Like it just goes in that order. Now, there are some pros and cons here. The pros is that if you are in a group that is not particularly consistently healthy for all of the kingdoms that are there are some advantages. By that, if you're in one kingdom and the other 7 kingdoms aren't as active or aren't as strong as yours, you have a higher percentage chance of placing within the top or higher end rewards. This is actually a similar practice to what you may often see from some players or groups that will basically migrate out of a very healthy, active, competitive kingdom, and they'll go to like a dead or deadish kingdom just so they can win a bunch of like top spots in something like a Mightiest Governor event, like an MGEs, right, in Rock. This was something, and I'm sure it still happens today, where when I was playing back during kind of like beta, post-beta for Rock, back when it was ROC before transition to ROK, you had people that would basically do this. And even for the 3 years I played, you had people that would do this as well. They would just go to a dead kingdom. They could win a bunch of MGEs, place top rankings and a bunch of placements, and then eventually migrate out and go back to a competitive kingdom. Now, there's other benefits as well if you're just going to use it as like a rebuild kingdom, if you go to a dead or deadish kingdom, right, as another way, not just for using an individual or maybe a small group. But this kind of reminds me of that is where I'm going with it. And so you have this situation where, let me see what the response is. At present, the growth rates of neighboring servers appear to be fairly similar, and matching them could potentially make players feel it less fair. Therefore, it is not being considered for now. Technically, if you really want to be honest, if you paired the top 8 kingdoms together, you actually would have the potential to maybe make more money. Why? Because you would have a more competitive Greatest Heights event. It's the same idea basically behind Brink of War in the number 1 and number 2 KvKs. Usually you're going to get kingdoms that are going to more than likely participate more when you have kingdoms that are of similar power, because everyone feels like they have kind of this equal opportunity to place for the top rewards, right? Which in this case in Brink of War is like your 3%, 2%, and 1% overall damage. So the same concept could be applied here. I actually think that this is a missed opportunity for them to test this out and to say, look, like for the next Greatest Heights, we're going to try doing it this way. If it doesn't work, and remember, we're not talking about, it doesn't have to be a permanent change. Why don't you test it out and say, look, we're going to put the top 8 kingdoms together in the number 1 Greatest Heights group, 1 through 8, and then we'll do, like, we'll rank kingdoms 9 through 16, right? And we'll put them in a Greatest Heights group and just test it out for one go and see how it works. I think we might be onto something here. But again, like I said, there's pros and cons. The cons is that the people who usually place well in Greatest Heights and probably have been basking in those placings, right, because they feel the consistency of it, may not necessarily be able to do that. They might have to do a little bit more now if you get put into a more competitive Greatest Heights group. So, like I said, pros and cons. But would I at least like to see them test it once just to see how it plays? Sure, absolutely. Dark theme. Can we have a dark theme for our sore eyes, please? This feature involves extensive adjustments and optimization of art assets. I mean, yeah, I can see that making sense. The development team is carefully evaluating the most suitable implementation plan to ensure the final result meets everyone's expectations. Oh, so this means that they are potentially considering it. That's pretty dope. I actually would be interested to see like how a dark theme would work out in COD. I'm not against this, even if it's something that, look, it's just going to take a while, but they're committed to figuring it out. That's pretty cool. You guys let me know what you think on that one. So that's it for all of what we got. This was actually, again, I'm going to be fair here. Yes, despite maybe 2 suggestions just being a complete like WTF, the majority of these suggestions I think were good picks, and they did give some decent answers, right? Not all of the answers were bangers. Again, I imagine, like I often say, I think providing a little bit more of a response rather than less of a response can help out, even if it's just to contextualize and to give us a little bit more oomph or a little bit more like filling out of the body of what the response message is, can help. But again, I liked most of the suggestions that were picked out, and I thought a decent amount of the answers were good and were good enough, I'll say, for at least what I thought and how I would have liked to see them answer. So yeah, this again, you guys let me know. What was the best question and the best answer here? And what was the question and answer you didn't like the most? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we will catch you later.